of people can define art the way they want to, but I think the way the art world looks at it is like, once your work is in a collection where or institution is going to preserve your work.
To me, like, the game really is to save the world. So like, and I know there's certain things that I can't touch certain people. So my competitiveness is more just about like growing myself and like trying to like beat my old approach. To me, the sport is mountain climbing.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll use that analogy.
You're climbing the mountain. It's not about you or me. It's like, can I not die, you know?
Hi, I'm Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah, and I'm the author of Chain Gang All-Stars.
It's really about abolition of the prison system, but in a fun way.
It would have to be someone who was convicted of a serious crime for so many people to be okay with her suffering.
My name is Brandan, BMike Odums. I'm a visual artist in New Orleans.
Is known for his provocative murals. His work celebrates Black life in a way too seldom seen, with loving depictions of family life and people realizing their dreams.
Everybody's valuable. They exist, they breathe, they live, they dream.
8,300 students drop out of school every day.
I never ever care about selling the book. I never asked about the numbers, ever. The first book made like a bestseller. The second book, it shook out with whoever came out that week. It didn't. And I remember being like, oh, do I care about that? Where did I enroll in that caring? Is probably in every time I get introduced, New York Times bestseller, da-da-da, da-da-da. But at a certain point, it almost becomes your identity, because that's how people view you as being. Why are you here? Why does he get to be in this otherwise exclusive, wealthy, fancy space or whatever?
Like, this is gonna be here long after you're gone.
I
was say, is there a promo way we start this?
I mean, I could start. I just want to say, so, it's my first time in New Orleans.
Welcome.
Thank you. And I had the great opportunity to go to your studio just yesterday and walk through that space. And I've been doing interviews, but this time I'm actually like genuinely excited, because I've never got to talk like really in depth with someone who's made something in that sort of physical proportion, but also that like emotional kind of quality. So I mean, first of all, I just want to say, bro, like, thank you for that inspiration. Thank you for creating that space. Thank you for doing something of that level. But if I could just jump into, I do have a question right away.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Appreciate you checking it out.
Yeah. So my thing was, I'm coming from New York.
Right.
And so, you know, we're used to like our living spaces like the size of like, 10 by 10.
Yeah, for sure.
And we see things that are a big scale, but it's usually these like nameless buildings that we have nothing to do with. But what I loved walking, one of the many things I loved was, besides the color, besides the way it embraced sort of tenderness, even in the face of violence, I love how big you made us. And the scale, I physically can't, I don't know what that's like to like manually create something that big and have an image and then grow it that way. So can you just talk a little bit about that and sort of the scale, the space?
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I think the easiest way to explain it is that I what made me fall back in love with art was scale, was being able to paint large. Because I think for me, like, I had to almost like shock myself into wanting to do it again at first, because I stopped painting for a long time. And so scale really is a way to like fully engage all my senses, because it's like I'm climbing, I'm jumping, I'm running.
It gotta be an athletic.
If you have a short attention span like I do, like, it's very difficult to lose attention because you're like so much in the midst of this giant.
Fuck around and break your neck.
Yeah, exactly. So I think for me, it was like doing those types of projects was really important to make me want to get curious again about painting. So when the snowball of things, the chance snowball occurrence of events that allowed me to be in that space, the first thought was to continue scale. It wasn't to say, okay, I'm in the interior space now, let me do what I see the other interior artists do, which is work on canvas, work small scale. It was like, no, I'm gonna try to go as big as I could outside and inside. And so that kind of was the first thought. And I also read somewhere that somebody get a critique and he said like male artists tend to keep working bigger, while women artists keep work small and more intimate. And I was like, that's interesting. I wonder how that relates to like my journey. But there was a point where I thought the best way to be heard as an artist was just to get your attention by going as big as possible.
Being as big as you physically.
I don't know if I'm still there, but that's where I was when I was beginning at the Studio B.
There's something like really interesting, because I have part of why I was just like in the awe of like looking at the images, I was like, I have no idea how like a visual artist in this medium grows their craft like to this level.
Yeah, I feel you.
And I'm really interested in how you did that. And you said something that also feels like it might be really important to hear is like you fell out of it.
Mhm.
And it's cool to me, that's already inspiring for someone to get to where you're at.
Yeah.
You almost imagine you have to have been like killing it from the beginning to the end. But it seems like that wasn't the path exactly. So you talk about like how you got to, I know that's hard.
No, I
to
can for sure.
condense.
But I also have a question because I in a similar pattern of the question about scale,
Yeah.
and I don't know, I should answer your question first or I should ask you this question about
Yeah.
scale. I feel like your work embodies a certain level of mental scale that's outside the realm of, I mean, it's like reality has a certain scale,
Yeah.
but then there's a scale outside of it that oftentimes I think feels intimidating, at least to say, okay, this is the real world.
Why?
I'm going to go beyond that. I'm going to create a larger scale of a world,
Yeah.
but still kind of hinge itself in the rules of or the social structures of the real world. Like, did somebody have to give you permission for that, or do you just jump out the gate and say, you know what, I'm gonna just go?
I always just knew it was a struggle. It's a really smart like sort of question because I think what you're kind of picking it up on is a big part of like what I think of as my style, which is like sort of a fluid movement in and out of what might be called quote unquote realism
Right.
or human scale and things that are a little bit more towards the surreal, the sci-fi, the speculative, whatever, all these things for things that are a little bit larger maybe than our physical lives.
Mhm.
And even scale is even an interesting idea for this thing, but I know exactly what you're talking about. But no, I struggled for a while because when I first got into writing, I think I got very lucky that I was completely unaware of like literary kind of anything.
That's important.
You know,
Yeah.
so I didn't understand these like implicit hierarchies that exist between like, basically when I went to MFA, it was like realism, like the best story is some couple in Brooklyn in their apartment, like slowly simmering through a divorce or something like that. You know what I mean? That felt like high literary to me. But I knew I didn't care, not that I don't care about that, but that wasn't what felt most interesting to me. But also that felt very far away from me. I grew up reading fantasy stuff, some realism stuff, whatever. I grew up well interested in me, not thinking about genre.
Right.
But so when I went to school though, just by exposure, you start almost internalizing some of these ideas about, well, the people who are getting published the most, people who are winning these awards, they kind of are in this sort of mode, this realism. But I happened to go to school with a guy named George Saunders, who became my mentor professor, who's very comfortable with the surreal and like the strangeness. And so he became my thesis advisor and talking about permission. I remember going to him like without asking, but pretty much asking like, should I do this or this? Because I had these like stories about basically sad stuff about my life, mental health, blah, 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 poor, you know, like the basic stuff that like made up my real life. And then I had these other stories that were also doing that, but were willing to play around with reality. And they also had a lot of humor too.
Interesting.
And I was like, should it be this or that? I was kind of asking like, tell me who to be. And he was just like, yes, you know, and that telling me like, don't choose.
Right.
Or like being willing, unwilling to be like, this is strong, this is weak.
Right.
Ended up, and I viewed it as a weakness. Cause like, if I could put all my chips in one, I know I can, you know, but it ended up, now I look at my work and it was true. My first book is a short story collection. It was more like, you know, maybe this song is acoustic. This song has a lot of effects, but then Chain Gang's a novel. And that's a little bit harder. One piece that has all that same dynamism. To me, I feel like it's a really big part of my artistic kind of thing where it's really hard to place. It's really hard to say it's this or that. So he kind of gave me permission. A lot of the writers I really love giving permission. It's a lot of different permission came from a lot of different places, but I struggled with it for like a really long time.
That's so interesting because it's similar to me, that sort of idea of being willing to, I guess, be curious about all of it and not being a strict, I don't want to say discipline as the word, but not being like strictly about the one thing. I think was similar to my journey as an artist, where it was kind of like I had this thought around what an artist was supposed to be, or what I saw the artist who I looked up to being, and I struggled with the idea of how that was supposed to happen for me. And so initially it was just because I didn't see it. Like when I was in high school, which was the most formal art environment I was in, was this high school I went to where it was like
In your whole life.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so formally.
Yeah.
In terms of having teachers who are artists, instruction, and very disciplined time schedules and all these things. That was around the time when social media didn't exist. My teachers were all white. They did a lot of things well, but what they didn't do well was introduce me to other Black artists. Even though there's tons of Black artists in the world.
And you're from New Orleans, that's crazy.
Tons of amazing, there's no shortage of that here, but yet the way we were instructed, it was definitely deeply European, deeply like about the quote unquote greats. And so I felt that I was good at it. I felt confident about what I was able to do, but I felt there was no incentive to continue because I didn't know what it looked like.
Right.
I didn't know what a Black artist looked like. And I remember I say this all the time. My brothers used to joke with me. They used to be like, what you gonna do? What you gonna go in the French Quarter and sell paintings on the side of the road? Because that's what we did see Black artists do, at least from the peripheral driving by. Like, oh, look at that Black artist, some dope paintings, but they're sitting there selling work. Not that I got homies who do that and they do well. Or more than just do well, they're happy with that. You know what I mean? But for me, I was like, I don't know if that's not what I want to do. I feel like I had something in me that I wanted to get out. And so what became really interesting to me at that point was filmmaking and video. Because at the same time I was doing the visual art, I was also always playing with my father's camera and always like shooting the whole videos and stuff. So I did see examples of that. I saw Spike Lee, I saw John Singleton. I was like, oh, I see where I'm going to go. So I went to college for filmmaking, and that's where I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. Like I did that with great excitement, curiosity, and just so many stories that I wanted to tell. And that we were doing a lot of stuff in the community, a lot of things, a lot of grassroots media. We had a collective. They still doing a lot of what's called 2 Cent, and we were just creating. Like that was period. We were just before YouTube. We were just out there creating stuff, not knowing when it was going to go or what it was going to do. And so I think for me that was really informative. Because one, it was about, like you said, your professor told you, like, not having to choose. It was us just saying, we're going to do whatever we want to, however we're going to do it. You know what I mean?
But y'all chose yourselves.
Yeah, it was just like, the ignorance of it was what was most powerful. We didn't know we couldn't, and so we just did. We didn't know, like, we would pull up because I was working at a TV station at the time.
That's such a bar. You didn't know we couldn't, so we did. That's important, though.
Yeah, and I feel like for a lot of us, that's how it starts.
Yeah, not to cut you off. You said you was going to a bar?
No. So you said that was a bar. You said I was going to a bar. No, I wasn't going to a bar.
Yeah.
I was working at a TV station. Yeah. It's this public access TV station in New Orleans. It's just closed down recently. It's kind of sad. But it was a space where anybody who had something to say in the community would sign up to get a show. Public access. Yeah. It's like 2 ferns in the back in a chair and somebody speaking on their soapbox. That's what I did as a job, like for 5 or 6 years when I was in college, after college. And it was because of that space I had access to cameras and stuff, stuff that was outside the reach of my peers. So it was like a whole equipment closet, and it was like you could use it. So I started getting equipment, going to campus, and giving my homies and saying, let's film some stuff. Let's write some scripts. Let's make these sketches. Let's make these. So anyway, so that kind of snowballed for me for a long time, this moment of like collaboration, which was a huge part of it, but also this moment of listening to the community and saying like, okay, we're best effective. And that's why we called it 2 Cent, because it was about speaking your 2 cents. It was like, we're best effective if we see ourselves as an amplifier for what's happening.
Yeah.
And that's something that I learned from just all the artists I looked up to. I felt like they all did that well. I feel like more than them asserting who they were as an individual, they were about, one of my mentors used to always say, he said, how did he say it? He said, I'll never cut my umbilical cord to the hood. Something like that. He said, it stuck with me. He was like, and this dude was super successful, really like well established. And he was like, in his mind, it was like, I got this umbilical cord to the hood that I'm not severing. And I got to constantly feed me and I got to feed it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Anyway, I like to say that painting for me wasn't the first choice.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I got back into it was because of the camera.
Yeah.
And just being in proximity to spaces post-Katrina New Orleans where there was a lot of destruction, and just seeing in the back of my subjects on camera, a big, huge piece of graffiti back there, or a big, huge mural that was done illegally. So I'm focusing on you, but I'm trying to frame you up
in this art,
to this art. And then I'm starting to pay more attention to the art than I am to you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I could do that. And I'm like, so I'm going back in the space. I left my camera at home. Now I got some spray paint I just bought from Home Depot. And now I'm up on the wall trying to do a little something. And I was upset with the fact that I couldn't do it well. So then I became like devoted to the fact that I need to do it better.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, people started paying attention. And the next thing you know, I'm like, never touched the camera in a long time.
It's really, really impressive to hear that. And you kind of answered some of it. I'm interested if you go more in depth, because I was gonna ask who first even put that medium in your hand, the can, but also, like, again, if people have gone to your studio, I don't think it's like giving you a big head to be like, you are incredible painting in that medium. And so, and I'm big on like the craft stuff. And so, and I'm just curious about what that looks like, what that kind of growth looks like. And there was a question here about growth, but I'm really interested in how you grew your craft and sort of maybe how that ended up flowing into sort of your sort of, I don't know, like almost like spiritual, more ethical approach. Because there's a feeling, and I'm later on I'll talk about the ephemeral and all those things. That word appears a lot, and it seems like there's an interest in like persevering, but also knowing things can't last forever. But before we even get to that, like, how did you get good? Like, how did you get dope at this very specific type of art?
You know what? I think it's like anything. And I'm curious, same thing with you as a writer in terms of how you even, because it seems like the point, we talked about this earlier, the point in which you share it is so far away from the point in which you create it.
Yeah.
That how do you even know? By the point you share it, you're like, yo, it's there now. Like,
Yeah.
Your critique is not even, or it does the critique even come to a point where you're like, yeah, I'm going to go switch this up. Because for me, it's like, especially as a public artist, and this is a story I can share about that. I remember I was painting in Miami, and this is obviously like deep into my journey as an artist. And I'm working on this mural in the middle of like a busy section of Miami. I'm thinking nobody's paying attention because it's Miami, murals happen all the time. And I'm doing a mural of Neymar Jr., soccer player.
Yep.
And so it was for the World Cup and Bleacher Report, blah, blah, blah. So I'm working on it. I'm thinking nobody paying attention. I'm painting. Ain't nobody stopping and say, hey, great job. Or, this is whatever. No words from nobody. And then I wrote his name and I misspelled it. In the middle, as soon as I misspelled it, I felt like from 20 different directions, people were shouting, you spelled it wrong. And I'm like, yo, I guess people are paying attention. So I think there's a part about being a public artist where it's like you're constantly feeling watched. So it makes you like kind of like tighten up quick. You're like I'll be upset when I'm like midway through a piece and it doesn't look, or at least not upset, but I'm concerned with the fact that, yo, people got to see this.
People get to see your process in real time.
And so it forces you to like work quick and also work efficient in a way where like, even if somebody walks up on it halfway, they still can like, they still can't say nothing to mess up your head.
That's really interesting. That dynamic is part of exactly why I never show things. Like a lot of writers show things like pages all the way, like from the beginning and whatever. I really don't. I very rarely share work until it's like, this is my first draft. It's really like my third draft, like I'm very.
So who's editing up to that point? Just you solely?
Just me, YOLO. My first read is my agent, and maybe I'll give like a friend or two, but like, I mean, also I'm a very super slow writer.
That's another thing. Also going on. Yeah.
My first book was short stories, so that I was also working a lot of them in an academic context. I went to grad school, so the stats book I was a little bit scared because the same guy who gave me permission, he didn't read it till it was done. Like edits were in, and I felt some type of way about that. I was like kind of like stressed, like, oh, George didn't get to read it. It's trash. I didn't have a workshop for it, and so it was kind of like I was on my own this time, but. The thing about working on a book for so long, it's like you really do have to find a way to be your own, like that. You have to create that voice for yourself. But I think that crowd that scream at you spelled Neymar wrong, for a lot of writers, that voice is always there. It's very loud. It keeps them from even writing the name at all or anything. Right. I think a big part of being an artist, or at least a writer, but kind of artist in general, is like managing like that creative play versus that editorial critical side. And it's really important to like have some element of like just fun with it, like being really in the sentence. Like you said, I think about that, like you said, like in the physical aspect of climbing the thing and being up there, like there's like not a danger, but like And I'm interested, like, I don't know like how easy it is to fix mistakes for you, but like
Real easy.
yeah, so like, you know, like
Yeah.
you're getting to like have fun and just like
Right.
do what you want. And
that's the part of it that I think where I kind of begin. There's two things that happen for me. This is, I would assume the opposite for you, is when I'm creating, I think when it comes to the ephemeral nature of things, like I remember I had a friend of mine who I think is a genius in high school. He's a writer, a poet. We went to high school together for visual arts. And so he's a visual artist as well. And I remember one time, for whatever reason, he had this epiphany while we were working in the studio. And he was like, I get it. I know why we create. He was like, we want to be immortal. We want our work to last forever. And as a 16-year-old, you know, this is a very profound thought. I'm like, really? I'm like, dang, that's immortal. And then it forever like was weight that I had to carry every time I approached the canvas. I'm like, dang, does this deserve to last forever?
Yeah.
Like, because when you look at it, I mean, a lot of people can define art the way they want to, but I think the way the art world looks at it is like, once your work is in a collection where someone's or institution is going to preserve your work, then your work is more valuable because it's like now the idea is that your work will last forever.
then it's the immortal.
Right, exactly. Because now this institution is going to preserve your work. They're going to have it with the rest of them forever.
Yeah.
So long after you're gone, they can resurface this work. And now the work that other collectors buy from you are even more valuable because of that. You know, so there is like this level of like longevity and preciousness of art that people immediately apply to it. The minute I draw on this paper, it's like, oh, even better question. Like we just did this, not question, but we just did this project with Pelicans. And it's a canvas. When I handle my canvases, I'm like reckless with it. I'll throw it around. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. So we were going to drop it off at the arena. And we're on the call with the maintenance team or whatever. And they're like, we're talking through like where we're going to install it. And so we talked about putting it up on the wall and how it was no problems, whatever. But then the pieces being auctioned. And when the guy on the call heard the potential price of how much it's going to be auctioned, he immediately said, okay, I don't feel comfortable handling this piece.
Right.
He said, I think you need to hire somebody.
Somebody with white gloves on.
Right. And I'm like, wait a minute, like this is the same old dirty canvas that I just put on the wall, but the thought of the preciousness of it immediately changes your approach to it. So now you're like, yeah, I can't touch this now. And I'm like, no, I said, I just stepped on this yesterday, like literally. But so anyway, so I said that to say that the idea of the preciousness and the eternal nature of art is what kind of led to the distaste that I had for it. Whereas, no, I'm kind of that voice in my head is so loud that I can't even focus on the fun of it because all I'm thinking about is, does this deserve to last forever? Is it precious enough for someone to find precious and to purchase and to hold it and to see value in it? And so what street art did for me was it took all those things out the way. It's like, I don't care how much you love this, you can't have it.
Yeah.
I don't care how much you want it to last. I can walk away and someone could tag over it and it's gone. And so working in that arena forced me to kind of like, you disconnect from all those rules that made me free as an artist to create the way that was best for me.
I love that. And I've thought a lot about this because there's not so many opportunities for me to like directly deal with the like art economy, visual art economy that is. And that's an interesting world. I remember the first time I saw someone took a Banksy, they had like cut it out the wall. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this has to be 100% against what he/they wanted.
Right.
And it's going for like, you know, whatever, 30 bands, some crazy number. Or it's crazy to me, but maybe not to someone else. I think that, and you're touching on something I find very interesting in like the consumption of art and how art is often defined by like these institutions, like you said, that can sort of grant immortality, but at a really steep price. Mm-hmm. Literally and also sort of like spiritually in terms of accessibility. Yeah. I think that what's so awesome, again, I went to the studio yesterday, it's like it's extremely accessible in terms of price to get into the space. And it feels very inclusive. I'm interested in how people, I mean, you kind of answered the question beautifully by saying like what street style is to you. Mm-hmm. But how do you like an actual practicing artist, like what's that conversation for y'all in terms of art and accessibility and like how to be an artist? It seems like it's from the outside looking in, it seems like to be an artist who survives on being art, you have to, who survives on doing the art, you have to sort of enroll in this like basically hyper luxury world of curatorial blah blah blah. And then how do you do that while also keeping umbilical cord to anything real? Because that world is so, and again, like that world just feels so distinct from the what, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, definitely. No, I can't profess that I've figured it out. I think I have friends who I think have figured it out. At least, they seem to dance the line well. I really prefer to be in a space where I don't have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't want to parade my ignorance as like a great thing, but I do feel like there's so much I don't know about those spaces. I don't know artwork that's collected by these like institutions, and neither am I probably doing the necessary things to do that. Maybe it'll happen one day, maybe it won't. I think I like to relay my journey as like, Master P selling tapes off the car, It's like, I think there is like a process. There's a kit, you know what I mean? I tell this to my students all the time, because they often come to me with these questions about like, where should they go or how should they think about the success as an artist? And I think similar, as I would imagine as an author, it's like you define it for yourself and what works for you. Because there's the kit, like you go to the school, you go get your master's from Yale. There's the kit that'll get you close.
Yeah.
It's still not 100% sure, but there's the kit that'll get you close.
Path, yeah.
But then there's a path that's just like, and New Orleans teaches that path very well, I believe, in terms of what it means to be an artist, not as a way to cash in on something, but as a way just to exist, as a way to just to it's so far who you are that it's not about a job description or a title. You know what I mean? It's not about something. Like, I don't feel like, and people are critical of this. I do have a question I want to get back to before I get too deep in the weeds. But there is a part of New Orleans that says like, this is not the place you go to cash in on your talent, right? And there are places you do go to cash in on your talent. Like the only reason why you're there is because, hey, look, I can do this, and I need you to pay for me being able to do this. All is not that place, and I think there's a lot you can learn from this not being that place in terms of asking folks who do things extremely well, like, why do you do it? Because clearly you're not about to, like, ain't nobody about to come here and write you no big old check and sign you to some big old label. So why are you doing it? And the answers typically, I believe, is something that's more connected to what it means to be human, what it means to just understand why you can do the thing you do. You know what I mean? It's like, I can sing, but me singing is not so I can go into somebody's box and only do it the way they tell me to do it. But I do it because it helps me navigate. It helps you navigate what it means to exist in this world. And so anyway, when it comes to like creating, we talked about this earlier in terms of like the shelf life, or back to that idea of like who, in my case, it would be like these institutions or these spaces that validate the preciousness of what one creates. I'm curious for you in terms of like the relationship a person has with your art is so different from a relationship that a person would have with my art. Yeah. And there's a lot of things I love about that. There's a lot of things I'm curious about. I think for one, I could be wrong, and maybe because I'm a slow reader, but I feel like an audience's relationship with an author's art is probably the longest relationship they have with art for a period of time. Because you watch a film in 2 hours, you listen to an album now, you listen to an album in like a day.
Facts.
If I look at my work, there's an 8-second rule with public art where it's like people will give 8 seconds for what you create, and you can choose to communicate that 8 seconds, because after that, they go on. But I'm going to sit with this for a month. 1 month. I literally purposely took a year to read it just because I loved it so much. Because I was like, I'm trying to milk this as long as possible. Yeah. So I think that's super intriguing for me. But I wonder for you, if you ever think about that in terms of the shelf life you have with your audience.
It's weird because, like, strangely, time is not what I think about it as much, because it fluctuates. I also am a slow reader, but not super slow. But some people read the book in a day, and I'm like, that feels like something was lost.
Yeah. Why do you feel like something was lost in the habits?
Because, I mean, one might just be pure ego, where I'm like, well, it took me years, so.
I feel you. Yeah.
Thank you, but kind of fuck you now. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, cool. They mean it to say they loved it.
Right.
But it feels like, think about how, like, a day, in a single day.
Right.
To me, it feels like they look at the picture for 8 seconds. Like, how long, you know what I mean? Maybe that's fine, but like I want you to like sit with it in your body.
Right.
And I guess the thing what you're talking about is really important because I like books because I've been changed by books and transformed by them a little bit. And I guess I have like a sort of implicit or explicit feeling that or sense that takes time, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think a book is probably the longest that people allow themselves to be like in an art piece. But besides the time, what I usually think of is the absoluteness of it. And it's changed with audiobooks, but like, this book is nothing to us. Like we can glance at it and it's just not the book until we open it and read it. Whereas a song, for example, there could be music playing right now. It's existing through the time without us.
Right.
And we can passively semi-attend to it.
That's a good word.
And same thing with anything audio or visual, you can passively take it in.
Right.
Like you said, like you could have like the news thing and you could look at that or you could not. But imagine like by focusing on, and it is true on some level, focusing on it makes it appear in some way, but it was kind of there on its own.
Right.
The story does not exist without you.
Yeah.
Or at least it takes a little bit more. So I think like some art, like a movie, for example, is like 90% there. And you could give 10%, you give your 10% to make it real. Like it's going, it's audio, but a painting is like, these are, I mean, I'm making this up, it's like 50% there, you know? Or or I don't know, maybe like 80% there or whatever. But a book is really only 50. Like you and the author and the reader have to really be like, let's do this thing together.
Right.
And also you can't do anything else.
Right. Yeah.
And what I like about it is we all have to present in the world in a certain kind of way. We all have to do this or that, but there's a kind of a sacred mind's eye monologue that we say the things that are just for us, that we approach things that we know we're not allowed to talk about. Sometimes they reach our mouths, sometimes they don't.
Right. And
when you read a book, you're allowing me, a stranger, to like occupy a sort of sacred space for maybe a long time.
Right.
And that is a very, very, very specific, I don't know if there's anything else exactly like that. That's why I love audiobooks. I think they're still reading, but it's a little bit different because someone's giving it to you. And you can still do that, but like when you yourself are taking these abstractions on a page and creating this world, it requires so much of your consciousness that you actually can't do anything else. Right. And so that is the completeness is what I often think about. And I really have a lot of reverence for that. And so like that, like absolute, that to me is where people talk about reading as an empathetic gesture. I think it's inherently an empathetic gesture because I'm by force saying, there's a whole other way of looking at the world and come take it with me. Right. And language is how we happen to like create meaning. So like, here's this, even just the sentence structure, like part of what's like, feels like cool about when people from up north come down here is just like the pace and way y'all talk down there shows me that you see the world different. Right. And imagine that over a sustained period of time does something really powerful. So that's
true.
One thing I really, really love about the medium of writing, fiction. And again, I'm also interested in other things, and I'm going to get to like something you said earlier because I'm playing around with other mediums too. But like I do photography a little bit. I'm interested in video too. I've been messing around with music as well. But I love that completeness of it, and the time is also cool.
But I still think, I think the beautiful thing, and you just touched on this, and I didn't think about it until now, like about how much of myself I bring to everything I read. Like it does become, because what I love so much about what I do is that it has to be a collaboration. I feel like the success of what I do as a public artist is the fact that the word public is connected to artists. So I can't just go into space. I can't go to the Bronx and be like, here I am, a black man from New Orleans. Yeah, I'm about to go paint what I want in your community. Like that's the people do that, but to me that's like the flawed way to approach the process. Yeah. To me, I go in first as a listener, and then figuring out how do I collaborate my voice with the voices that are there, whether it's specific organizations, specific artists, etc. So I do think I never thought about the collaborative nature of reading, and it's so obvious. But when I go in, like even reading Changing All-Star right now, it's like I've been so steeped into anime right now that for me, like as I'm reading it, I'm seeing it in as such the presentation feels almost anime in a way. And I know that's probably not the way someone else would approach it, who's probably deeply into like a Western or deeply into like the way, so I think about the way you introduce your own sort of personality into the way you
You have to. It's all colored in your own style, which is to me what's so dope about like watching visual art, because I'm getting a cool thing that only you could normally get to see. But I mean, you're also probably picking up on something real, which is like I am big on the anime. Like I'm raised in the anime, and like someone who, it's weird because what is that exactly? I think for me, what you're probably picking up on is like the willingness to combine like high action with like serious, more ethical, like kind of debate or whatever. We were talking yesterday. This is a natural segue. You have to talk about, rest in peace to the GO, Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball Z. And sometimes when I talk about my inspirations, and I think that inspiration is more fluid than people think. I think people ask it like, I saw this cup. I made this painting of a cup. You know, it's like, it's much more, like I might have got inspired by a gust of wind when I was 4 years old that just made the leaves pick up in a certain kind of way, you know, like I think it's more whatever.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
That said, I think a lot of us being like Black men of like a certain age are like extremely inspired by not only Akira Toriyama, but like all the things he overtly inspired.
Yeah, everything was born from that brain. Yeah.
And there's so, and so I think some of what what I loved about Dragon Ball Z is besides the like specificity, because if you were to talk, it's so much in the public zeitgeist, it feels normal, but it's about an alien boy from a planet called Vegeta, who's like kind of like a ape thing, whose planet gets destroyed. He comes to become a martial artist and has to like protect his people, and then eventually the world from various other aliens. But also there's like this like, and there's the dynamics or whatever. But anyway, what was cool about what I loved about, I mean, I'm interested in this if Dragon Ball Z and like what type of anime stuff that you like. But what we were talking about yesterday is there's these models, like almost the character types, which Vegeta for a long time I felt very connected. He's my favorite character, even though he's getting whooped a lot. Like that pride thing, and how he wants to be strongest, and it causes him a lot of like sorrow, and it's like almost like a analog for a desire for a certain kind of success that will like always lead to like this like. As opposed to Goku, who is the strongest and is interested in being the strongest, but is ruled more by like kindness and honor, basically. And he cares to be the strongest, but he cares to be the strongest to be the strongest, not so that you can know or you can know. Like he doesn't be boasting or whatever, but he's him. And so I'm interested in just like that stuff, especially for a visual artist, how any of them, and always how those things inspire or interesting.
I think the whole story to me is like about self-actualization and different approaches you get to you take them to
Dragon Ball Z.
Yourself. Yeah. It's like they're constantly trying to push a higher form of themselves. And I think to me, like that probably wasn't the first thing that I was attracted to. I think I was first attracted, I lived in Japan for a couple of years, and it was at the time, it was while I was in 3rd and 4th grade. So it was at the time where Dragon Ball Z was like in the ether everywhere. Just like the first couple of things I was drawing was like Dragon Ball Z characters. Yeah. Not really understanding because it wasn't like dubbed or subtitled. I just knew everybody loved it because we went to a school that had like, we were in the military. My dad was in the military, so we lived on a military base. Yeah. The school was like mixed with like, wasn't just us as Americans. So I just knew everybody loved it, and I didn't understand when my neighbor spoke Japanese. And so we would go over to his crib and watch it, and he would just kind of tell us what was happening. And this was when, he would be like laughing. I was like, what happened? He's like, they just cursed. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. A cartoon cursing. All that stuff, he just really.
What a way to take it in.
Yeah. And so I remember like trying to draw the characters, not fully understanding the full story, but just so attracted to the illustration style. But then, as it came stateside and as it became like such a huge thing, I began to understand the story, understand like all this idea of self-actualization and trying to be better, trying to improve themselves. And the thing is just, there's so much about it that was just, I think for me, the world that was created, it was simple enough, but yet vast enough. Because I think sometimes worlds are created and it's so like, vast that I'm like, I don't even know where to enter. Like, I'm like,
it can be tough.
Yeah, like it's like a person today trying to become a Star Wars fan. It's like, yo, where do you enter in that? There's so many like, the
it's so big. Yeah.
I feel Dragon Ball always did a great job of like having this elaborate world, but still creating these doors for people to walk in and say, hey, this is just a cool story about two people fighting, and one guy seems to be good, one guy seems to be bad. And anyway, but definitely, I think my art style, I think when it came to like mostly the paneling, as I would see it in the written form, it was more like thinking about it. That inspired me a lot.
Like the mangas?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
The way I would lay out stuff, color palettes, those types of things. I'm pretty sure there's so much more aesthetically.
Yeah.
Yeah, art pieces of gold. I think it's been beautiful to see all the different artistic responses like that people have been posting, like all these different illustrations and stuff. They're really cool to see.
I really find it inspiring. Like, I mean, for any artist or anyone who's interested, that one way or another, he installed like a kind of an ethos.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like, and it's weird because sometimes I watch people who are fans of anime, supposed to like really deep fans of anime, and I always think about like people who are deeply fans of something and live life in a total like I mean like deep fans, but they're like, I'm like, I don't understand how a deep fan of Dragon Ball could ever be like a cyberbully to someone else.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because like that show to me, because I watch Dragon Ball Z, even when I'm trying to do stuff like basketball, it's like I'm not quitting.
Yeah,
me and my bros, you get cut from the 7th grade team. We're trying again. You get cut from the 8th grade team. We're trying again. You get cut from the 10th team. Then we made JV. It was like, yeah, this is the shit. And embracing the training, embracing like I'm not good. I can get better.
Actualization. That I think for sure. I think there's a lot of. I know the youth I work with. They're all deep into anime. Like it's crazy because there was a point when, and I have the privilege of not having to like work with youth in the larger context and seeing like how our kids are treated versus like whatever you would define other kids.
Yeah.
So all I have is the art kids. So I'm doing is like the center of it still the edge.
Yeah.
And I assume that artists sometimes dance in the edge. So I all these kids are like deeply. It's like almost getting them to break out of an anime shell. It's like, okay, I see you did that cool illustration, but I need you to think about, let's be inspired by this artist. Let's be inspired by,
cool.
So it's interesting in that way. But no, I'm definitely, I don't know all the ways in which it shows up, but I think the story sometimes, as we think about like kind of what you're saying, like any story that's around like the righteous journey of a hero, I think we can be critical of it. We see all the different ways in which it doesn't show up in the real world.
Yeah.
Like the way evil triumphs, or the way like those who have ill intentions are sometimes the ones who are seen as the hero in a lot of ways. And I've seen like the super woke analysis of Dragon Ball where people are like talking about like, oh, Goku is a terrible father, he's this, he's that, you know, because he's completely focused on self-actualization to the point where that's all that
he's absent dad.
And it's like, yo, is that the way you want to be? You can ask that about your life. Yo, am I going to be so devoted to the thing that I feel like is the best in me that I'm going to just completely like not exist to anyone, anything when they need me?
What's the price of like absolute like greatness?
Right, exactly.
You know? You said something that I'm also interested in because I think it's a big part of, I can imagine having students that are interested in art. And first off, you just existing in the space. Like you said, it makes it like for me, I didn't really, it wasn't until I went to college where like I fully even said out loud I wanted to be a writer. And I read a lot. My parents dropped me off to the library when it opens, picked me up when it closed. But like I never like really was like, okay, those people are doing something I can do. Right. You know? Well, I didn't even think of them as really people. I just thought of like those things just appeared. So when you have your studio, but also just your presence in the world, because like it's also cool that you're like a normal person, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Some artists kind of take on this.
It becomes a part of the job description to become the person that's so distant and so mysterious.
There's like someone told me that you could wear like not the pattern shoe, but like the like almost like you put on these clothes of like the artist, you know?
For sure. I know folks who do that well.
And are you sort of conscious of what it means for like your students to see your space and walk through it? And maybe just how has teaching been a part of, or like mentorship and all those stuff? How's that been a part of your journey?
No, I think it's what keeps me. There's a lot of ways to approach it. I think, obviously, I think the first part of it is I'm a product of that. Like I'm a product of people who poured into me, who at a very young age saw something about me that they thought was worth pushing or worth investing in, and so I feel like it's my duty to continue in that tradition, because I know I'm only who I am because of that. But outside of that, I think that it's also, in a selfish way, it's a way for me to just not take myself too serious. You know, I think I think the challenge becomes when you become a professional and you become like, it's like you have to carry that. You have to wear that wardrobe. It's like, oh, now you're this thing, and now everything you say is so important. Everything you do is so important. And I never was attracted to that. I never was. And I know the temptation of that from folks who I've seen cross that bridge. And it's like, you know, just the fact that they walked in the room is now like a big deal. Now the room is a different room. And now, you know, they said this opinion and now it's this thing. And like, you know,
Right.
and I think sometimes the temptation for artists is to strive to be in that arena, to be so considered that you're so whatever. And that was never attracted to me. So the minute I even got a foot, not even a foot, but just like a hand in that little room, I was like, nah, I said, I'm not trying to go that direction. And so being around youth is the best way for me to just like not take myself serious, because they would definitely cut you down at any moment. They'll definitely say how much you're not cool, or how much you're not, like whatever. And I think for me, it's like, I've always been attracted to collaboration, attracted to like, and that comes from like video and film, like understanding that, yo, you know, you're only best if you like bringing people with you, or someone has a vision and you're all helping push that vision forward. It could be your vision one day, it could be this person's vision next day, but you know, you play a role to help actualize that. I've always been, that's the work mode that I enjoy the most. And so I found myself always surrounded with other folks and just being a part of collective. I think the thing with youth that's different from working with like established artists, I've done things with established artists as well in the city. I think the main difference is, I think when it comes to, there's a lot more to navigate with established artists. You got to navigate ego. You got to navigate like all these questions that to me, it just feels like it's counterproductive. With counter-realities in the mission, you like saying, okay, there's so many stories to share about folks who we will be in a group conversation, and then next thing you know, it's like, you stole this idea from me. And I'm like, oh, dang, like I didn't know we were even there yet. Like when working with youth, there's this idea of like, of just this willingness to participate that is beyond the scope of like ego. The scope of like, I'm trying to word it in a way where it sounds, because that's the place I prefer to be, like where they are, and not in an immature way.
It's the real place.
The place of pure curiosity is the place that I enjoy being the most. And I find like everything else just gets real corporate real quick. You know what I mean?
I what you're saying is like so good for me to hear, because sometimes I get like almost disillusioned about it. Like I'm curious about, you said like you got one foot in, you knew right away it wasn't for you. I'm interested in that, because that is not a lot of people's experience. So sometimes you got to get a foot, a leg, your whole body in that room, and you got to like, just because it's so closely tied, some of that stuff, it feels like it's so closely tied to like sustainability or like just having money. But
it has a lot of ways to look at it, because I understand people's position who feel like, yo, I got to get all the way in that space. And then I'm most effective in general. And I can feel that. I know people who are like that. They're like, yo, I'm effective because I'm in this space. And because I'm in this space, I have the resources, I have the connection. I can now be a more effective, whatever it is I want to be, organizer.
But that's always a tricky thing to play, though.
And I think at some point it can, and it probably will corrupt. You know what I mean? But there's a period of time where it's like, yo, okay, we're going to cook. Like, while you in there, we're going to cook as much as we can until you get lost. And now you don't know who you are anymore.
It's really scary. And for me, I really like hearing about it, because it wasn't, I think, like I said, when I went to, I did MFA. So that is sort of like, to me, that's the closest I've gotten to like, you know, like the full, like, that's why I learned the literary thing, but also I had to participate, like the literary, like whatever. I remember the first year I was there, I was so embarrassed because I was always Googling. I had never heard of Neruda. I never heard of so-and-so. I never heard of da-da-da. And at this point, I know a lot of those people. I can, if I had to play the performance of that thing, I could, but because of certain things I've done, I don't have to. They allow me. It's almost like you have to earn the right to be yourself in certain spaces by certain kinds of successes or whatever.
That's a good point.
So like, I don't really have to give a fuck, because I know that they're gonna like, you know what I mean? I know when I show up, my name's on the list or whatever. Right. So I wonder how I would be outside of that. But like, I feel I care a lot about being myself. But I did have a period, because I feel like a lot of people come to art stuff through like some kind of wound or some sadness or whatever. That like, if only I could be successful enough, okay, I could help my mom's sickness or whatever. I could heal this or that. When my first book came out, my parents, there was already a bunch of struggle based on my mom's who had been sick for a long time, but then my father also got cancer. So like, I'm like, on the other side of success is like saving everybody, which again goes with the anime thing. It's like, which is a little bit of an illusion you're creating. Like you're creating this like, because it's really motivating. You have this or die attitude. And I remember my first book, this really hard, because I told myself I wasn't attracted to some of those fake things, but really being almost like in a deep level surprise that I had won these awards and I wasn't like suddenly happy. You know, I had gotten this other thing, or a bestseller, and does it really do shit?
No, for sure.
And then it's so tricky because you can always be like, well, I was a bestseller, but maybe if I get National Book Awards, but you know what I mean? And then so this book comes, and it's like you get even more of that stuff.
Yeah.
And what I've been teaching myself is like, you have to know for certain that like, because like the other part is even leave out the like sort of corporate capitalist kind of approach of like, I think I'm the best, because I really don't care about that. I mean, or I don't think in the ego sense of like, I don't care for like their trophies, but I care that they know that I'm real.
Right.
I care that everybody, I used to care a lot about that.
Right.
And it's like a sort of a competitiveness, but like to me, like the game really is to save the world. So like, and I know there's certain things that I can't touch certain people. So my competitiveness is more just about like growing myself and like trying to like beat my old approach. And like, to me, the sport is mountain climbing.
Yeah, no, for sure. I use that analogy.
You're climbing the mountain. It's not about you or me. It's like, can I not die? You know? Right. But having that attitude versus, and somehow, and glimpsing, because at the end of the day, it just happens to be a fact that like, I guess what I'm saying is some of like the ease in which to carry like the attitude you're talking about that I strive for is 100% couched in knowing that by all stretches of the imagination on some level, like I've done the thing anyways. And maybe his glimpses that most people will never ever see. A lot of people will put out a book, period. A lot of people will never get a chance to have their mural, like whoever, you know? And how do I just knowing where you exist in the world, but also just because of where you exist, you carrying the humility you carry is actually really important. And like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's almost like it's a sacred thing for people to see, like to really remember, because it's hard. It's easy to get unknowingly tricked by the other side. It's easy to get like enrolled in something you didn't agree with, where you like all of a sudden, for me, the example I give is this, like, I never ever care about selling the book. I never asked about the numbers ever. The first book made like a bestseller on a certain, but it was a paperback, so whatever. The second book, because of how it shook out with whoever came out that week, it didn't. And I remember being like, oh, do I care about that?
Right.
It ultimately, where did I enroll in that caring? It is probably in every time I get introduced, New York Times bestseller, da-da-da. And I don't even like that part of the event when they say like the long list of blah, blah, blah. But at a certain point, it almost becomes your identity, because that's how people view you as being. Why are you here? Why does he get to be in this otherwise exclusive, wealthy, fancy space or whatever? And I'm always interested in like, oh, how did I put that part? I didn't even realize that was on. And so I don't know. It's almost like, how do you keep that like almost like spiritual hygiene with yourself? And the students you seem like the students are a big one.
For sure the students do, but I think also before even getting there was just like, I feel like I've had great mentors who were at different points in their journeys where I learned a lot from observation from with them, and seeing like, oh, this is what it's like on the other side of all the attention and all. To me, it's like it's a metric of attention and I always, or consideration.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that made me like step out the door is because I got to the point, and not even step out the door because I'm still dancing around the frame, I guess. But whenever I got to the point where I was like, oh, I can scale this mentally, you know, I can synthesize scale. And I'd be like, okay, 10 people know who I am. I can scale what it feels like if it's 100. And then I can scale what it's like if it's 1,000.
Yeah.
So I start getting to the point like, oh, I just got to check for this amount. I can scale what it's like if it was this amount or if it's that amount.
Yeah.
Once I got to that point where I was able to like start synthesizing what scale looked like, And then I also, because of the mentors I had, I understood what came with the scale. What came with the scale was increased consideration. And I always felt like asking for more consideration was the opposite of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
To say, okay, 100 people have to consider who I am. In order for me to scale, I need 1 million people to consider who I am. I don't want that. Like, I don't think anybody can handle or is built for the toxicity of having X amount of people considering them in general. Because now you got to farm that ground. Now you got to be like, okay, you consider me. You thought I was whatever. You thought I was great. You thought I was cool. You thought I was lovely. Now I got to tend that garden in the middle. They got that way. So if I do something wrong, if I say something wrong, and now all of a sudden you're like, oh, he trash, or he did this,
And it will be.
and now I gotta like go to that garden and be like, do the work of saying, okay, well, let me prune these edges. Let me like,
And
that's not what I ever wanted to do.
and the bigger the garden, the faster it withers, for sure.
For sure.
Because it becomes like a meta-analysis. People get upset that other people. And I just think it's really like, I love hearing it, because sometimes I get discouraged as I see some of my peers, and it's like, it manifests usually on social media, like via their Twitter. And I'm like, I thought that we were like serious. I thought that like about the heart stuff, but so many things you're talking about. And it says that you can see how quickly people will be about their stats.
No, definitely. There's an analogy I use, and I see it happen all too often today. And I understand. I try not to think it absolutes often, but I understand like how this could be important in some way. But I feel like there's a lot of people now who, to keep themselves warm, we got to a place where people are willing to throw anything in the fire, including you. And they sizing you up. Like they right now, they all in your face like, oh, you cool. But they still sizing you up. Like, if I need to get warm, I'll put the fire. So
You'll be crackling. Yeah.
So it's like, I'm like activating in that space where now we have this merit system of attention, where it seems like that's the big currency. It's like, oh, you got to get attention. You need people to consider. You need, we're in the middle of doing some really big changes at the Studio B space. And it's like really important to me, because it's about scale in a way that's about intention and impact. It's about saying, okay, we've been doing this stuff organically. How much better could we be if the space was more insulated, or if the space had more resources or more classrooms, all that stuff. And one of the consultants I was working with was saying, well, the best way for you to do this, we need to increase your profile. We need you to be a bigger artist so people have more reason to want to support. I'm like, dang, that's not what I want to do. Like, that's not what I want. Like, I'm not into it for that. Like, I understand strategically, yeah, if I start banging the drum super loud and not everybody got to talk about me, then it's a lot easier for me to be like, hey, look, we need some support, and people line up. But at the end of the day, for me, it's like, I realize that what I love most, for me, what I love most is being able to work intimately in the spaces. It's like the idea of saying, okay, you got the abstract absolute number that you can touch, or you got 20 people who you know well that you can really be impactful with and be like, okay, I know what's the issue here. I know, or I can learn what the struggles are. I know where I can best be helpful, or where what I'm creating is best helpful for you. And for me, that's a way more, I love that space a lot more than just saying I'm gonna do this work that's gonna impact this invisible mass that I'm pretty sure is great, because I'm the part of a lot of invisible masses, and I'm appreciative of the work that I get from folks that impact me.
Yeah.
But I often see it as two different paths. It's like, you can't be approachable and touchable to the 50 people who you're with all the time, and still be the voice of this invisible mass. You know what I mean?
It's absolutely true. And you're kind of speaking to something that is why. So, because on some level with writing, 100%, that's how they do it. There's no studio, but if the book is your studio, they try to make it about you, the author. And I'm big on like death of the author, where the book has its own life. It's doing its own thing. But to make the book thrive in the world, you have to go touch the people there, touch the people. And I like it on some level, but also it can be really difficult.
Yeah.
And so how do you find some sort of balance between those things? And it's something I think about all the time, because I mean, luckily it's a book, so it can always be intimate,
Yeah, for sure.
But like, I know I've seen my favorite artists in the the Armory in Albany and Madison Square. I seen Kendrick in the Armory, and I seen him in Madison Square Garden. I love the Armory so much better.
Yeah.
I love it so much better. I seen J. Cole from my school, and I seen him in Madison Square Garden. It's like, and I still probably one of my favorite artists, but it's like it's a different thing.
It's different, yeah.
It's a totally different
The
thing.
whole construct is different. It has to be different. Like,
It's diluted inherently in some level.
yeah.
And there's something really beautiful about, again, for you, like understanding that now, because especially, I mean, I guess because you've been around enough, like it's easy to get enrolled in bigger is better.
Yeah.
And it's really not always true, especially for what I was going to get to is that, with books and writing, which again is a thing I love the medium for those reasons I was talking about earlier, it's in some level inherently been co-opted by like the thing we're talking about, this machine that it wants to just get bigger and bigger just to serve itself. And so I find myself feeling attracted to photography and filmmaking. And lately I've been doing music, and a part of what's dope is I put out a song the other day and like nothing happens. And it's probably one of the realest things I've ever written. But like, I mean, people can be nice responses because of course I'm still a human being. So I still have some of the ego. I care to get some of that response.
Sure.
I'm still looking at DistroKid. I can see how people listen. But a part of the beauty is I did it and it kind of doesn't matter. Whereas if I would have put out an essay with the same title, with the same content, it would have been a whole fucking thing.
Right.
You know?
That's something I ask the students a lot. I always ask, it's like, would you do this if no one paid attention?
Yeah.
And if you say yes, then I feel like, yeah, you're gonna do well. Like you're gonna be able to navigate this space a whole lot more than someone who at the very beginning is like, no, I'm only doing this because I need to be heard, I need to be seen, which once again, I think those are legitimate ways to approach the process. But I think that fuel is gonna put you on the side of the road real quick.
It's corrosive.
Yeah, you're gonna be like, hey, son, I've been doing this for 2 years and nobody paid attention. I'm done.
To me, it's like different between like diesel and like clean energy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I was blessed to have folks in my life who expressed that from a very seasoned approach. They were like, you know what? I've been like, I took the deuces on this for a reason. And this is why, because this missed, you know. One of my big homies is be like, yo, there's always going to be more audience than there is you. You know, there's always going to be, God willing, there's always going to be more people in the crowd than there is you on the stage, even if you have a full orchestra behind you. So he was like, the challenge is when you assign value to that. When you say, oh, because there's more of them than there is me, they're more valuable than I am. So I need to make decisions accordingly. And I feel like a lot of artists or creative people in general, we sometimes orient our decisions on that thought alone, that the invisible mass is so much more important than me. I got to do and say exactly how they want me to do it, say. And I just think it's not sustainable. I think it's just a way of, at least for me, it's a way of that I try to avoid until it's a time. And I think there's a whole other conversation about what it means to be useful to the audience, right? To see yourself as a type of tool, you know, and I think your work does that. I think my work, God willing, does that in terms of where people could take this and say, okay, this is now a tool for me to have a conversation about abolition, or to have a conversation about how we rethink the penal system.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, then you can say, okay, now I can align myself to, or not even align myself, I can be useful.
There's a clear, I mean, it's like, why? It's kind of like, why do you do it? And there was a time, and I say all this stuff that I'm talking about, like, not, because I know I've been in it, and not that I've ever been enrolled in like wanting to be the biggest, but because I so much conflated success in like a more material, observable sense with like basically saving my family. And I was very angry. And I love the things that it's really easy to throw like your non-success into that fire that warms you, like that, like resent for where you're at now, as opposed to where you want to be, as like the engine that's keeping you going. And eventually I really just had to let go of, I think I was freed by getting it, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I think for a lot of,
and I was like, oh, this isn't, first off, it's not that healthy. First off, I don't care. I don't want to have to depend on a random person I've never met to make me feel like I did something, because I did something in earnest for like my view about like how can we be a more compassionate like human like species, and identifying that in this case that the prison system is really hindering that, the carceral state is really hindering that, and that's so much bigger than some fucking medal that a couple people give you, you know. But it's so easy to attach to the medal because we want something in our hands. We want something. Talk about that ephemeral. Like we want we want this. Yeah. You know. And I've been lucky that I mean it's been a hard-won battle because it's sort of subtle because it is about how you define success. But you talked about like utility a lot. I'm very like into like how can you that idea too. So with the projects that you have coming on the horizon, and maybe thinking about. I don't know how useful it is for you to have like I sense like a broad picture sense of like your artistic use, like how you view yourself. But like if you had to say like what you think that not the studio, but like sort of might be as a person, as an artist is like doing, how does the next, I don't know, maybe you can't talk about the next projects, but how is the next one and how is who you are as a whole like fit in that lane? How do you describe your usefulness for your communities?
Right now, it's been in the last 2 years. It's just been it's a different process for me right now because it's more strategically creating for the long term in terms of what that space can and will be. It's been really dialing in on that specific 2940 Royal Street, that address, and saying, okay, if this is where we're planted, how do we grow as best as possible? So that's been looking like a lot of things. That's been less glamorous than being an artist in terms of putting on walls. It's been like strategy, consulting, like really thinking about building something that's permanent and talking to friends of mine and saying like, yo, and that's why I've been quiet in a lot of spaces because it's strategic at this point. And while we're in this building phase, we're like, yo, we can't really bang the drum too loud. We don't want to like really bring in all the eyeballs right now. But the thought is around like how to create safe space for dialogue, for creating, for challenging, you know what I mean? Like as we see, and especially in this time where even the spaces we thought were safe, the schools, the institutions, we're seeing like these are spaces that are now more difficult to engage in. It's like we see that there is a need for spaces that are not connected to anyone's like a completely owned Black space. That's able to have, you know, so there's a lot I want to say that we're still in the process of working on, but that is what it is for me. It's like creating this permanent institution that's about everything we've been doing and all the things we want to continue to do. My art is just the way I'm able to get in the door. That's the way I'm able to have the conversation. The person to say, hey, you know, you see the stuff I've been doing, that's cool, right? Well, now this is what we're trying to do with that. And I think the same way, my question for you in terms of, sorry, I need to call, but I don't want to.
You call.
I told you I'm tripping right now. But I have in terms of going all the way back to the longevity of a thing. When I think about books, and I got a not a mini bookshelf full of books. I think there's the academic approach to it where people are like, oh, like something about having this changes the orientation of who I am. Sorry, I got a cough. It makes it, you know, I know people who just carry books and don't read them. You know, there's more people that say, oh, you. Oh, there's that scene from the Boondocks. I don't know if you've seen that, but there was like, what was it? A Thug Nicholson? Read books. I think there's still a part of the academic approach of books that I think kind of creates this barrier for folks where they're like, you know, I don't read books. I'm not the type of person that read books. But then there's the idea of like how a book potentially lasts. Like this is going to be here long after you're gone. You know, that this is a representation of who you are. And when did you write this? What year was this?
From 2015 till 2 years ago.
So this is a timestamp of you in that moment.
Like,
how do you deal with the fact that you today might be a little bit different from the you from 2015 to 28? You know, that this is going to be the thing that's on somebody's bookshelf.
It's really interesting because I only have 2 books, so I can't say, but I also know that I have a sense a little bit, which is maybe weird to say because it might be totally wrong, that this is the one that might be like the most on people's bookshelves, you know, like long term. Like it's done the thing. And especially if we continue down a certain kind of path, like let's talking like adaptation or whatever, it can really be like the thing, you know? And when I think about that, I feel extremely proud. Mostly because when I set out to write the book, I wasn't good enough to write it. And it was a mountain, let's use that metaphor where like, say, mountain has multiple summits. Right. Summit 3 was way steeper than Summit 1, but I knew by doing Summit 1 and 2, I would get like the hand grip to do Summit 3. And it also mattered a lot. I like that my first 2 swings at the bat, I said something like that I feel were important. And the most important thing that intersected with my personal identity and what I had access to caring about. And so for me, I feel great about that being true. I kind of look forward to the day where this shit is outdated. Like, obviously, I look forward to like this to be like, I can't believe, like, why would he say all this? And then we know that like prison is whatever. So that would be dope. I don't see that happening like immediately, but also I like to believe in, like, I think it's like faith is a practice. And so I think there will be a time where that happens. Yeah, for sure. And I look forward to that being the case. But and it won't be perfect though, but there will be a time where it'll be like some of the stuff is like common knowledge and known. So I look forward to that. And I like that besides the fact, like, if you write this type of stuff I write, and again, I wonder how you feel about this, but I wonder how it goes. Like, the subject will often precede like the craft stuff, you know? The fact that I'm writing about X, Y, or Z will precede the fact that I create like whereas if I wrote a book that's more literary with like, that didn't feel so connected to a public discourse that's happening in the moment, they basically in a review for me, they'll talk about the fact of what I'm writing about much more than the way I'm writing it.
No, that's a good point.
Which isn't always the case. And that used to like make me feel kind of like, again, this weird writerly ego thing where I'm like, also I'm cold. You know what I'm saying? Like also I'm like good at this because I put a lot of craft and effort into that. But also it's like, now I'm in a place where I'm like, good. Because I don't have to prove that to you. The fact that you're talking about it in the Times or wherever did that. But even if you did it doesn't matter. Because I'd rather, the more important thing is that for a second, you, whichever platform you did, had to talk about abolition seriously. Right. And that feels really special to me. Like, I can go, I felt weird about doing certain shows or whatever, but I'm like, you know what? I'm talking about something that matters. Right. And I've created, and for me, that book being on people's shelves is it's a stamp. It's a splash for sure. And I feel good about that.
That's a good point. And there's like, I remember hearing, I think it was a Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick Lamar album. A lot of people, the reviews said he made the perfect album because at the time he made an album that people were afraid to critique. Yeah. Because they felt in critiquing the album, they were critiquing the message. And no one wanted to critique that message. Yeah. So it was just like, some people was like, oh, you had the cheat code because he made an album that was so entrenched with a conversation that was so important. And I think sometimes as an artist, you kind of get, as a visual artist, speaking for myself, you kind of be the same way. And actually there's this thing, my students deal with this a lot where they, like one of the phrases for is like the wall of silence when they get their work critiqued at these like white institutions. I know. And it's like, they feel like the students aren't able to.
They're scared.
Yeah, they're scared to critique the painting because they think
fucking racist.
Yeah, exactly. And so the students are like, yo, we're not getting the same experience as the rest of the class because we're paying just as much as them, but we're not getting critiqued to help us be better because you're afraid to talk about my portrait of Trayvon Martin because you think by talking about.
I love the portrait. You guys are going to be like, this is the best portrait I have ever seen. Exactly. I know. So when I was in grad school, I was my this workshop at the heart of like the MFA experience. My workshop was all white people. It's me, 5 white people. And again, I love them. They're great. But
I get it.
The type of shit I've been writing about. Yeah. You know, and especially when I got really into it, it's a lot of like, wow. Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I think I was doing like good things sometimes, but like it's different. And so I had to, luckily there was other workshops I could take where there were some black people. So I most of my friends are black. I could show outside the program, but it's a really real experience that can happen where what your students are talking about. I felt that 100%.
And so I'm often curious about like those who do create from that level of like, now a student will be looking at this and say, oh, like this gives me the permission, like the permission you needed to have in the beginning of your journey. Like this becomes the thing that gives that next student permission.
To say, it's one of my favorite things to know that is true. And I know for a fact already, because like I'm sure as you know, like they hit you up. I tell you. And it's another, it feels important to me. Like that they saw it, this is like valuable, this is something that matters. And again, sometimes being critiqued in certain spaces matters because it's not just the subject, because it's about the execution. There is like
for sure.
There's artists have a certain kind of pride about about the execution that matters. And it's not just ego, it's that I put effort into this. I care to grow myself. I care to be the best that I care, or the best I could be. Not in this context of like me versus you, but me versus like this engagement of this particular project. And so yeah, it feels really cool to have something like this in the world that is physical, but it is like, so what you're talking about with the studio. And to me, it means like you feel like a part of your utility to be like a space maker and a way maker, really. A space maker and a way maker. And like that feels like such a high calling. And I'm really interested in that. Like I
forgot that question. I just
no, you answered it completely, but like I'm just like trying to like reduce it way completely. But like there's more nuance you gave. Because I know it includes art spaces. I know it includes activism. I know it includes community building. And I've seen the space in the art shows it already, but I can just imagine all the different ways you're trying to grow beyond that. And I think you're doing something really special, and you're doing a special way, because I can't say how much it's easy to not be that way.
Yeah.
The art world really wants you to not to pick it, like you said, you've been overtly told that you have to grow your personal star, and finding ways to not do it is huge. I look forward to having opportunities where I'm from, this place called Spring Valley, Rockland County, to like creating some kind of physical space for like, whether it's writers or artists or just like studio community space, because it's a powerful thing. So I'm really, it's inspiring to hear about it. I'm inspired.
As we know very well, the space is political, and like there's like artists, especially as a public artist, it just got to the point where it was like, yo, like I remember I was speaking at a conference and somebody waited. They waited after everyone was talking to me, just hovered around his back. This older white guy, and he came up to me. He was like, "I don't want you to have a paint on the wall you don't own." And I thought I was like, man, this dude's a hater, bro. Like, what is he talking? Because it was like, I was just happy to be there, you know? Like, I was like, yo, give me a wall, I'll paint it. And as I continued to go on this journey, I was thinking about that, not only for like that I own it, but I'm like, yo, what's gonna happen to this wall? Like, I'm painting on it. What's the next part of this? Like, what happens tomorrow? Like, who owns it now? What are their intentions? If I come and paint on this wall, what are you then gonna do? Like, are you about to like, is this because you know, the analogy is like murals are the first step of gentrification. You know, it's like, first comes the murals, then comes the high prices, you know. So it's like, so I'm like, yo, I got to be more conscious of that. And in the process of being more conscious of that, focus came on my space. It was like, yo, okay, I'm in this space, but I'm only here until somebody tells me I got to go. Like, what does that mean to what we're building, what we're creating? And how do we make sure that's not a part of the cloud that we're in? It's like, yo, we don't know how long we're going to be here. People come to us like, I want to do this next year. Like, I don't even know, dude. Like, we might not be here. Yeah. So the goal for us was to remove that cloud and say, okay, now we're not gonna have that pending question mark above us. Yeah. The path is ownership. The path is to have full accountability and understanding the political nature of that. The Bywater neighborhood was 67% Black ownership before Katrina. Now it's 20%. So we understand how political it is to have a Black space in that area. And we understand in the city of New Orleans how important it is. And a space where we're taught that artists aren't supposed to have equity, aren't supposed to have any say-so, any stake in what's going on. It's a multi-billion-dollar tourist economy. The average culture bearer in this city, an individual, $15,000 a year, $22,000 as a couple. So you see this disparity between a multi-billion-dollar tourism economy and those who sustain it.
Golly.
And so for us, it's about, so the usefulness for me is about tackling those questions. Not saying that we're going to solve it, but to say, yo, if we can like, just spirit, just like run at it with all our force and say, you know what? Yeah. We're not going to be an example of how this stuff has always been going, how it's always not gone right, and how can we use this moment to say we're going to challenge these ideas and these questions. And so that's the usefulness in terms of why that space, why I'm finding it so hard. And I've had people ask me, well, like, dude, get up and go to Atlanta. Like, all these questions we wouldn't have anymore. Get up and go to Houston. Get up and go. And I'm like, nah. So like, to me, there's a reason why this has to happen here. And we've been proving it. And the same way with DJs doing with this space. You know, it's this idea of like, you know what?
I was gonna say,
there's so much that has to happen. And if you are privileged enough to be in this space where you can even engage in those questions, then you have a duty to do it. And that's been a part of the usefulness right now. And then I could go back to the artists and painting and all the things.
Nah, it matters. It matters a lot. And it's hard because it is a little bit of a, I mean, maybe it's a privilege sacrifice, but it's a sacrifice because I'm sure you rather not have to take these meetings and pay to be these dudes to tell you stuff that some of the consulting is not the best consulting, some of it's good, some of it's bad. I don't know if people can really, in the small times I've had to deal with like lawyers and infrastructures and like just from IP stuff or whatever, I'm like, this is a lot. And so that's what just stuff from my imagination. So man, I can't imagine when I'm trying to like put things in the ground because, you know, that's one thing they care about and really like curating that space. So to me, it's really inspiring to hear. I'm sure it's going to be really inspiring to hear. I mean, it's already inspiring to see it because I already see it. It's not like you haven't done it already on some of them.
Yeah, that's been super helpful. Is that we're talking to folks and like, look, this is not an abstract concept. Like you can go and see and touch it, and most of the support we got so far has come from that. Exactly, like people can walk through. I just got speaking of critique. I know we talked off camera about like loving critique. I think one of the best critiques I've got in the last week. As I was showing some folks who do a lot of great work and, you know, they support a lot of great causes. I was giving them a tour of the space and walk through talking about it. And then afterwards, I'm like doing the whole pitch about where we are, where we're going. And the critique afterwards was like, they said it felt like talking to two different people. They said, man, there was like the person who gave the tour.
You put on your tie.
The person who, it was like, it's not the same. It's like the confidence. It was, for me, it was like a critique about like, in terms of the sacrifice and how sometimes it's tough. I think artists, sometimes we don't feel like we have the agency to step into spaces where this is not your arena. You know what I mean? Like, this is not.
You got to make the pitch with the same heart.
Yeah, I don't want to pretend like you're the writer that sits in front of the typewriter, but it's like, you know, this is not the typewriter. Now for me, it's like, this is not the canvas. And sometimes as artists, we kind of like use that as a way to kind of cower ourselves. But no, I'm excited. And I'm excited for everything you're doing. And all the legacy of work that, how many, when it's all said and done, I know this is probably an abstract question, but how many books you think?
I'm thinking it's a little bit less than I thought before. But to be honest, I mean, I'm definitely gonna do like, I can already see like maybe 5.
Okay.
So 3 more I already kind of have a sense about.
That's beautiful.
And beyond that, if I get to have these 2, I already get the ego side of me already feels good that like I know I'm on the shelf.
Yeah.
After that, just try to find other ways to be useful, I guess.
Is it too far-fetched to say that it'll be connected to the same world, or is it like
it won't be the same world, but it'll be the same energies because that's just who I am. But it won't be the same world now. But the show we might do a show. We'll see. And that's where I have that same energy where
I can imagine. Yeah.
I don't want to talk to disparagingly about it, but like it's a different ball game, and I feel sometimes frustration that I'm like I know how to write, but I got to do all this other stuff to even get to write.
Yeah,
and I hate having to prove to people.
Yeah, no, you're speaking my language right now.
That I know how to do the thing that's why they even interested to talk to me in the first place.
It's like that level of validation that now comes in at a different level because. I'm so tired of sitting across from people who feel like I'm not supposed to be sitting down.
Yeah.
Like I
have to prove it again.
Right.
But the only reason that they even talk to you in the first place is like you already did it.
Right.
It can be really frustrating because I'm like, they just let me do the thing.
Right.
And then we'll can see.
Right.
You know, but anyways, bro.
Hopefully we get to a space where that's no longer the case and we're able to just, you know, that's the direction we're both going to.
We're going to do it, man. I was going to say I'm honored, bro.
I'm honored as well. I appreciate you. That was a great conversation.
Love it.
Yeah. My
cars.